welcome. I'm Oles Gerdjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. Ukraine has been battling for its independence not only in the fields of Donbas, but also in cyberspace. Government networks have been subject to continuous cyber espionage, while other cyber attacks have blocked access to news media. These cyber attacks on the nation's critical infrastructure attributed to Russia have been a wake-up call for the government to introduce its cybersecurity strategy last year. So to discuss how productive it has been and to outline new ways of boosting digital security of Ukraine in 2019, we welcome to our studio Volodymyr Styran, cybersecurity expert. Hello and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So how many cyber attacks has Ukraine experienced last year?
No one has exact statistics because no one actually cares enough to collect information about at least substantial portion of them. They happen as we speak, but we cannot keep in touch with everything going on.
But how come nobody cares to collect the information? I thought that there is some data, somebody analyzes this data.
The information is out there, you just have no practical means for collecting it and putting it into the context, right? So it happens all the time. You can feel the air, right? So something is going on, something is happening. But we are far from the point when we can tell that we collect and structurally and systemically analyze this information.
Well, according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, there is a figure, but estimated within the 4 years of the conflict with Russia, approximately 6,000 cyber attacks. He said this in Brussels on October 17th.
These figures can be treated as some kind of statistics, but they strongly depend on what the author of these statistics deems the cyber attack, first of all. So define cyber attack. It can be a probe of several TCP ports on the perimeter, and they can tell that they are cyber attacked already. But in fact, it can be just a background noise of the internet that's just happening all the time.
If we're looking back at 2018, what cyber attacks would you outline as the most dangerous and critical for Ukraine?
The most critical and dangerous are the ones that we were not able to uncover. Because all the time after NotPetya, Russians were mainly focusing on spy operations, on intelligence gathering, collection, right? So they tried to get a hold of as many assets as possible. They collected enough information to, I don't know, blackmail government officials, for example, or just get some information about who has bad credit history, who has a mortgage that they cannot afford anymore. So they were mostly focusing on espionage operations, but in the meanwhile, we didn't see a lot of diversions, right? Like NotPetya, for example. So just strong moves to express a political statement they were not making anymore for some period of time. And this is bad.
Well, we didn't see the attacks, the cyber attacks on the governing bodies as similar to Petya, but we did see the attempts, multiple attempts to manipulate with people's opinion throughout social media, throughout different networks, which basically also belongs to the cyberspace. How can you comment on that?
I wouldn't interconnect it with cyberspace because it's less technical and more information warfare. So. But now we are talking, right? So when a nation state projects its power into this new warfare domain, what we call cyberspace, they do one of three things mainly. They make diversions, they make some, I don't know, cyber terrorism moves to express their opinions, to put their agenda somewhere in a way that is not directly connected to them. Right? So the attribution is still hard, but everyone knows it's Russia. Everyone knows it's Iran. Everyone knows it's North Korea, sorry. The second topic is normally just spying on others and themselves. And the third is information operations, influence operations. That's what they are doing everywhere for last 4 years, right, and a half already. So this is what they are going to do in Ukraine mainly until March, at least, and then until October.
Until March because of presidential election, you mean? And
so
until
these two
October,
cycles of presidential election and parliamentary elections are the main shapers of their operations.
Okay, what risks does Ukraine face before these elections?
We are not mature. As a culture, we are not mature enough.
As the culture or as the country?
As a culture. Country is just the borders, just the sovereignty of.
So our culture is not mature,
culture.
that's what you say?
The culture of the society that comprises our country is not mature, right? Because country is just a government body and some sovereignty and some people, who just express this sovereignty through the government. But the culture is the network of artificial instincts that we as a society possess, right? And this network of instincts is absolutely not ready to what is coming.
Do you think they are artificial? And do you think that culture can actually tackle the cyber threat? Maybe IT sector
It's the only thing that can.
Culture can tackle cyber threat?
Of course.
How come culture can go through the cables and grids and...
Culture shapes what people do.
Okay.
And all the cyber attacks are mainly focused on manipulating people to do some things. So or exploit the things that people are already doing wrong. Okay, so this is all about the people. Somewhere, even when we are using some, I don't know, zero-day exploit to attack a lot of computers through the internet by a wormable bug, right? We still exploit the error that a software developer made when he developed this software. So it's all about the people in the end.
Yes, of course.
It's a cultural problem, and the culture is immature.
Well, I was thinking it more about intelligence. But please describe me or tell me, how does Ukraine tackle this question? Maybe, as you say, without this right culture, but how does Ukraine tackle the question of cyber security and growing cyber threat from the Russian Federation?
In different ways. On the government level, not much motion is visible, because currently the government is busy with other problems as the presidential election approaches. But what they do, at least they have a strategy now. Okay. But the strategy still needs some implementation, and the devil is always in the details, and the strategy has no details, right? It's a high-level document that will shape something below, and these below layers are either non-existing or not visible or classified.
So what is lacking in this strategy? Because as far as I know, as the Cabinet of Ministers presented, this strategy has 18 tasks. For example, development of the technological component of the national cybersecurity system, establishment of cooperation with international partners, establishment of the process of training personnel in the field of cybersecurity. So
it has many things. It doesn't have the most important one. It does not
the most important
address the political responsibility for this function. It's still, as it's commonly been done before in Ukraine, it still disperses the responsibility between several different agencies, starting from National Bank of Ukraine and finishing by SSU.
The responsibilities for the aftermath of the attack, of the possible attack?
For the actual coordination.
For the coordination of
cybersecurity efforts on the government level. So everyone is responsible for some partial portion of a task. And no one is actually responsible for it as a whole.
There is no essential body who would be responsible for that. What would be your advice to the Ukrainian government?
Steal others' successful ideas.
For example?
For example, Netherlands. They have a really effective approach to this kind of problems. So they actually are the ones who basically hacked GRU, and have shown the Americans how the GRU hacked the DNC.
How do they hack it? Could you explain us what scheme do they have?
The CCTV cameras in the office. So they basically observed the cyber operation of Russians as it happened. So this was like the video footage of people hacking US elections. Okay? So these guys did it. They joke about themselves, they kid, like, I don't know, if it's Dutch, it's not much, you know that. So they are really, really self-deprecating in the humor, but they really know their stuff. And they arranged it in a really interesting manner that is not NATO-wise, you know, so they have some authentic approach. They do not bury it in the bureaucracy that is, again, a cultural constraint of NATO. They do it in a way that is really straightforward. They have a council. It represents a portion of delegates from the business, a portion from government, a portion from academia, and they basically define what is the agenda and what is the steps of the government are in regard of cybersecurity. The people who really know the stuff, not the people who are elected because they are good politicians. The people who really know what is in the kitchen, what is going on.
Well, speaking again of Ukraine, not about the Netherlands, you mentioned this presidential and parliamentary elections that Ukraine awaits for and the growing risk about the cyber threats from Russia. So according to Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration, Ivanna Klimpus-Tsatsadze, the country hopes for help from NATO on cybersecurity of the electoral system during the elections, and also Ukraine has received support from a number of allies, which are also NATO member states. Could you tell us more about how NATO, as this organization, even though you don't like the culture of their bureaucracy, can help Ukraine to tackle this question during the upcoming presidential elections?
Mostly financially. They are not good example for us. They faced slightly different risks. So what they can help with is methodology and some material essence.
What about the Netherlands? Does Ukraine develop some kind of dialogue with the Netherlands?
Nothing serious that I'm aware of. So there is some movement on the business scale. There are joint events. There are interesting diplomatic movements, but on the business side, I'm not sure everything is okay. Something is going on, but no, nothing I'm aware of.
Ukraine is trying still to build some kind of cooperation with other countries to, well, in regard of this issue, and we do know that the United States is ready. They stated that the United States is ready to largely focus its support on enhanced cybersecurity in Kiev, and also the UK. Earlier, Deputy Foreign Minister Alan Duncan called the United Kingdom the main cyber partner of Ukraine. Are these two countries effective enough in countering cyber threats, in your opinion?
They're good, okay? You cannot deny that. But again, the best country that we can effectively ask for sharing their experience and knowledge is not the US or the UK.
I've heard you. You said that this is Netherlands, right?
No.
What then?
It's Israel.
Israel?
Yeah.
But you just mentioned the Netherlands.
I mentioned Netherlands because they are really good at this stuff.
Okay.
But they face different political agenda. Geopolitical problems are completely different. Look at Israel and you will see what awaits Ukraine in the nearest future. So if we take this knowledge and put it into defense on our side, and then take Netherlands knowledge and arrange governance around the idea in the form that they actually invented, right? So this may be viable. This can fly.
Just to conclude the conversation, would you outline something specifically? What could we borrow from Israel and the Netherlands? So we conclude this conversation with something concrete and practical.
Take the idea of National Cybersecurity Council from Netherlands. Okay. Take the idea of strong emphasis on cybersecurity industry in the country and in the government. Yeah, that will work.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your comments. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, and thank you for being a guest today in our studio.
Thank you.
That was Volodymyr Styran, cybersecurity expert. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Gerjuk. Goodbye.